Sarah is a high school student who currently lives with her aunt. However, her aunt always locks herself in her room to work on her designs. One fine day, Sarah suddenly receives a huge package sent by her father from Egypt. When she opens it, she is horrified to discover that it's a coffin. Her father had left a note saying that inside the coffin is a mummy and instructed her to treat it as a family member. Sarah's father is an explorer who travels the world, so the items he sends are never ordinary. They are either cursed dolls or supernatural creatures. Therefore, Sarah believes that this mummy is surely not a normal one. Soon after, a tiny mummy emerges from the coffin, looking harmless, but Sarah still feels it's dangerous, so she carefully pushes it back inside the coffin. Then Sarah notices water leaking from the coffin, and she realizes the tiny mummy is crying because it's afraid of being sent back to Egypt. Annoyed by the mummy's persistence, Sarah uses a notebook to block it, but the mummy pretends to knock on the door, trying to get out. It asks to help with chores to stay, but because of its tiny size, it can't do anything, and it even falls straight into the sink. Sarah quickly rescues it. Sarah tries to find more information about this mummy in her books, but nothing is helpful. Meanwhile, Sarah's dog gets stuck in the door, so she quickly runs to rescue it. When the mummy sees Sarah holding the dog, it becomes incredibly jealous. It starts barking like a dog to get Sarah's attention, then rushes toward her, wanting to be held. Both the dog and the mummy bark back and forth, competing for Sarah's attention. To make it easier to call the mummy, Sarah gives it the name Me. After being named, Me seems extremely happy. Sarah gives Me a bit of water, but Me ends up spilling it all over itself. So Sarah uses a bottle cap to make a cup for Me to drink from. Sarah searches the kitchen to find something for Me to eat, but when she returns, she is shocked to see Me eating dog food. Sarah tries different foods to see what Me likes, and it seems to enjoy apples and ramen noodles. The next day, during lunch at school, Sarah tells her best friend Tazuki about Me. Tazuki, having never seen anyone keep a mummy at home, decides to visit Sarah after school to see Me for himself. When they arrive at Sarah's house, she is alarmed to find Me dried up and looking like a real mummy. Fortunately, after Sarah gives Me some water, it returns to normal. Sarah introduces Me to Tazuki, but Me gets frightened because it sees Tazuki as a villain. It refuses to let him touch it and quickly hides behind Sarah. After Tazuki leaves, Sarah gives Me a bath, and she is surprised to see Me happily swimming in the bathtub. However, because it absorbed too much water, its belly becomes swollen after the bath. Every time Sarah returns home from school, she finds Me dried up again, without knowing why. Seeing Me seems eager to help around the house, Sarah crafts a tiny knife for it. She gives Me a cucumber to play with while tidying up the house, but while she isn't paying attention, Me accidentally kicks the cucumber, causing it to fall. Fortunately, Sarah catches it just before it hits the ground. Later, Tazuki comes over to study with Sarah. While he's preparing some snacks, Me is left alone with him. The more Me sees Tazuki, the more frightened it becomes, and Tazuki, noticing this, decides to tease it. He uses a little snack to lure Me and tries to unwrap its bandages, curious about what's underneath. However, Sarah stops him and says that it might cause Me to die if the bandages are removed. Sarah gives Tazuki some dog food and tells him that Me loves it. After Tazuki feeds Me some dog food, Me becomes friendlier with him. The next day, to prevent Me from drying up again, Sarah takes it to school. However, she accidentally lets her classmate Motogi see Me, but luckily Me pretends to be just a regular doll. Motogi thinks Me is adorable and asks Sarah to make one for her, so Sarah makes several stuffed toys identical to Me to give to Motogi and Tazuki. But Sarah panics when she realizes Motogi has mistakenly picked up the real Me. The next class is Pei, so Motogi leaves Me in the locker room. Me sees a hole in the floor and crawls through it to escape. It climbs up a ventilation pipe and, while wandering inside it, encounters a rat. Scared, Me quickly runs away from the rat. Meanwhile, Sarah and Tazuki are frantically searching for Me around the school. They finally find Me being chased by the rat, so Tazuki uses his jacket to trap the rat and save Me. Sarah gives Motogi another stuffed mummy and has to be more careful not to mix up the real Me with the toys. After many days of locking herself in her room working, Sarah's aunt, KD, finally comes out. When she sees the dog food on the table, she panics, thinking that Sarah has been eating dog food to survive. Sarah quickly explains that it is Mi's food. However, KD is more interested in Mi's coffin than the mummy itself. The next day, Sarah suddenly collapses at the door with a high fever and decides to stay home from school to avoid spreading illness. To prevent anyone from entering, Sarah locks her room, but KD climbs in through the window wearing a gas mask. She even uses a bandage as a mask for me. After taking care of Sarah, KD heads to the kitchen to prepare dinner for the family. Meanwhile, Mi cries a lot because it's worried about Sarah. Later, KD notices that Mi is dried up again and realizes that every time he cries, it loses moisture until it becomes completely dry. Sarah keeps Mi close to prevent it from crying again. When Tazuki hears about Sarah being sick, he visits wearing a mask and tells me to take good care of Sarah. That night, Sarah's towel dries out, so Mi tries to wet it again, but the water basin is on the table, so Mi can't get the towel. It climbs onto the table, jumps into the water basin, and uses its own body as a compress for Sarah. The next morning, Sarah wakes up feeling much better. However, because Mi used all the water for Sarah's compress, it ends up catching a cold. Though Mi is sick, it insists on going outside to play. Sarah gives Mi a wool hat and scarf to keep warm, which looks really cute. But as soon as Mi goes outside, it jumps under the house and starts digging a hole. The dog, seeing Mi digging slowly, helps by digging the hole for Mi. Mi then crawls into the hole and buries itself. Sarah becomes very worried, not knowing why Mi would bury itself in the hole. She even begins to fear that Mi might never come back. After half a day, Mi finally comes out, and Sarah finds that Mi is completely cured. Even the dirt on its body has disappeared. KD, when wearing glasses, seems to transform into a much bolder person, but as soon as she takes them off, she returns to her normal self. Tazuki says KD needs to fix her multiple personality when wearing glasses. One day, while walking home, Tazuki senses someone following him and upon looking carefully, realizes it's a dirty little demon. Tazuki doesn't want to adopt it, so he leaves it behind. But when he gets home, he sees the little demon standing outside the window. Tazuki pulls the curtain down to keep it out and continues with his studies. However, when the demon keeps standing outside all night, Tazuki reluctantly lets it inside. Tazuki tells the demon it can stay just for one night, and then must leave in the morning. The demon, dirty like a pig, climbs straight into his bed. It then jumps into a cup of hot tea to bathe and almost burns itself. At night, it snores loudly, keeping Tazuki from sleeping. The next morning, Tazuki throws the little demon out into the yard. At school, he tells Sarah about the little demon. Every night, the little demon comes back to Tazuki's house to beg for food and shelter, eating all the food. Tazuki and his sister begin to feel like the little demon is becoming their pet. Sarah says that if Tazuki wants, he can adopt it, knowing that deep down, Tazuki really loves animals. Tazuki has always seen strange creatures since he was little, and they only appear to people who can help them. That night, Tazuki asks the little demon why it keeps following him. It turns out the demon likes him because he has a scar on his arm, just like it. But Tazuki says he is not its gang member. The next day, Tazuki takes the little demon to Sarah's house to introduce it to me. The two creatures, still unfamiliar with each other, just stare at each other without blinking. But after a while, they start playing tag around the living room, having fun. Sarah suggests making sushi to welcome the little demon. However, since it's their first time making sushi, the little demon can't roll any, so they just eat it by hand. But you roll so skillfully with your hands because you often help Sora with the housework. Sarah made the sushi rolls with your face and a little demon's face, which made the little demon happy. When they just got home, Tazuki had taken the little demon to the bathroom to clean up, but it pretended to snore, pretending to be asleep because it was too lazy to take a bath. And when it heard Tazuki talking badly about it, it stood up and kicked him a few times. A classmate gave Tazuki and Sarah each a fake lizard, and Sarah gave her lizard to you so you could roll it into a mummy, but no matter how much you rolled, you couldn't tie the tail, which made the little demon so angry it almost cried. The classmate accidentally dropped his fake lizard on the schoolyard, and it fell right in front of Mutagi, making her run away scared. On the way home, Mutaji told her friends that she had been terrified of reptiles since childhood. Sarah asked why Tazuki didn't bring the little demon to school for fun, but if that troublesome kid went to school, Tazuki's student life would be over. When Sarah got home, she suddenly saw her Aunt C.A. with the dog sleeping in a coffin, and he had reminded you to not cry while he went out to buy food. Meanwhile, Mariji had just entered her bedroom when suddenly she saw a dragon sitting on the desk, and the dragon awkwardly flew around the room, trying to find a place to hide. It even pretended to blend in with her stuffed animals, but Mariji, who was very afraid of reptiles, screamed loudly. Motorgi, scared, ran downstairs but tripped and fell down the stairs. So the dragon quickly flew down worried about her. But Mariji was still terrified and threw all her things at the dragon to chase it away. Motorgi was strong enough to pick up the whole wardrobe and throw it straight at the dragon, but the dragon was too clever, so no matter what she threw, it avoided it. Sarah was shopping and passing by Motoi's house when she saw her run out, and she asked Sarah to go inside to catch the dragon for her. But when Sarah entered, she saw the mess she had made. Sora was very surprised when she saw the dragon in the wardrobe, and the dragon gestured to let Sora know what had happened. Mutaji had just fallen down the stairs, so Sora guessed that the dragon was just worried about her. After learning that, Mutaji felt extremely regretful for trying to chase the dragon away, and the dragon gave Mutaji a flower so they could make up. Mutaji was deeply touched and hugged the dragon tightly. Sarah brought Motorgi to his house so the dragon could meet me, and he reminded her that Motorgi was not allowed to tell the AI about her dragon, as scientists would have experimented on them if they knew these mythical creatures were real. Sarah also told Tazuki to take the little demon out to play with, and they prepared some food for their pet. However, Mutaji's dragon only ate a few things, not omnivorous like the little mummy me. That night, Sora said that Mutaji's dragon really cared for you and the little demon, while you always needed to be served like a baby. When you heard this, you felt very sad because you thought you were useless. The next day, Mutaji's friends all posted pictures of their pets on class to show off, and Mutaji was about to show off her little dragon, but she remembered Sarah's warning, so she stopped. However, Sarah and Tazuki said that if she wanted to show the dragon, she could come to them. Mutaji told everyone that she had taught her little dragon how to write, and everyone thought she was lying. But unexpectedly, the dragon could really write. It even taught you and the little demon how to write. You wrote a line on the paper and gave it to Sarah to read, but judging by your shy expression, it seemed like you wrote something very affectionate. You had written that you wanted to stay by Sarah's side forever, which moved her deeply. Tazuki guessed that his little demon could probably only write the word sushi, but unexpectedly, it asked him if its writing was beautiful. When he criticized it for writing badly, the little demon got angry and wanted to hit him. While everyone was sitting in the garden, the little demon suddenly pulled up a radish from Sora's house, and the radish screamed loudly, causing everyone to have a headache. Sora's dad had brought this radish back during an expedition, and KD often used these radishes as alarm clocks. The radish suddenly rolled away at great speed and ran out of Sora's house. So everyone quickly chased it out to the river bank. You tried to jump into the river to catch it, but you landed in a mud puddle. The little demon, however, jumped in with one leap and landed in the water. However, the little dragon flew out and easily caught the radish. Seeing this, you felt even more useless. When you got back home, everyone lay down and fell asleep because the day had been tiring. When you saw the little demon catching a cold, you covered it with a blanket and wiped its nose. Sarah then discovered that you were gradually becoming more mature than before. When they left, these two little devils talked about something. It turned out that the two pets were trying to bond the two owners. That night, while Motiji was reading a book, her little dragon took out its pen and paper to practice writing. It could even bathe by itself without needing its owner's help, unlike you or the little demon pig. Even at night, when Motiji was sleeping with her belly exposed, the little dragon covered her with a blanket to prevent her from catching a cold. A student named Daiichi suddenly stood up and shouted loudly in the middle of class. After leaving the classroom, he suddenly fainted and fell onto Sarah. Tazuki and Motiji were sitting and waiting for Sarah to come up to the rooftop for lunch, but they couldn't see him. However, they insisted on waiting for Sarah to come before eating. They were shocked when they saw Sarah carrying Daiichi up to the rooftop. It turned out that Sarah had taken Daiichi to the infirmary, but they refused to accept him, so Sarah had no choice but to bring him upstairs to rest. Soon after, Daiichi suddenly woke up and tried to punch Motiji, but luckily Sarah stepped in to save her. They could see that Daiichi was extremely panicked, as if he had just gone through a terrible nightmare. After the class ended, Sarah went to Daiichi's class to talk to him privately. She found out that Daiichi often had nightmares whenever he slept, which caused him to suffer from insomnia and made it difficult for him to stay calm. Daiichi said that he had even pasted talismans to ward off evil spirits to prevent nightmares, but when Sarah entered his room, He was shocked to see that he had covered the windows with talismans. So, Sarah helped him remove all the talismans, thinking that he was too superstitious. Sarah then gave Daiichi a picture of a creature called Baku, which he said liked to eat other people's nightmares. Daiichi placed the picture under his pillow to avoid having nightmares. That night, Daiichi suddenly woke up in the middle of the night and realized he no longer had nightmares. However, when he looked beside him, he saw a very strange creature. Panicked, he called Sarah to come save him. When Sarah arrived at Daiichi's house, he discovered that the strange creature was actually a Baku, and it had eaten all of Daiichi's nightmares, helping him sleep better. A few days later, everyone was surprised to see Daiichi happily going to school. He said that the Baku came every night to eat his nightmares, so he could sleep more soundly. Daiichi had already apologized to Motiji for accidentally attacking her on the rooftop, but she forgave him because Sarah had explained everything to her. Sarah suggested that Daiichi bring his Baku to his house to play with his other pets, but the other pets kept jumping on the Baku, which made it feel very uncomfortable. The Baku suddenly jumped onto Daiichi's head at an incredible speed, and Sarah said that the Baku could move as fast as the speed of sound. When they returned home, Motiji was surprised to see Tazuki's little demon in her house. The little demon often ran away from home to play outside, so everyone was worried it might be seen by others. They felt that they needed to find someone to watch over their pets while they were at school. Sarah said that he knew someone who could do the job. He took everyone to meet a talking statue outside a shrine near his house. When Daiichi and Motiji saw him, they were speechless and didn't know what to say. Tazuki, however, knew him because he often visited the shrine with Sarah when they were younger. While they were talking, Sarah was suddenly grabbed from behind by a ghost. Although Daiichi was terrified of ghosts, he tried to chase after the ghost to rescue him, but when they entered the shrine, they saw Sarah leisurely sitting and drinking tea, and it turned out that the person they saw earlier was not a ghost but a deity who governs the temple. Everyone left their pets with the deity to watch over while they went to school. After that, Sarah and his friends would bring their pets to the temple every morning. Watching the pets play, it started to feel more and more like a daycare. While playing, me suddenly saw a beetle outside the door, so it crawled outside to play with it. However, the deity didn't know me was outside and accidentally closed the door. Me panicked and knocked on the door, but since me was too small, no one heard the sound. Fearing someone might see it, me hurriedly hid beneath the temple. Shortly after, a demon suddenly appeared, thinking that me was lost. So, it led me into a deep forest next to the temple. This demon was a different one, not Tazuki's little demon. On the way into the forest, me saw many mythical creatures like itself. The little demon led me to its house under a tree to shelter from the rain. The little demon seemed to want to invite me to stay with it, but when it saw me looking sad, it realized that me wanted to return to the temple. So, it said that after the rain stopped, it would take me back to the temple. Meanwhile, the deity realized that me had gone missing without anyone noticing. He hurriedly searched the temple to find it. Luckily, as soon as the rain stopped, me returned to the temple. When Sarah learned about this, he asked me to write a letter to thank the little demon. After receiving the thank you letter from me, the little demon took the letter home and pinned it to the wall. Tazuki's little demon always sneaked food from his little sister, making her cry in frustration. This time, it ate the cake that Sarah had just made for her. So, Sarah scolded it, saying that if it didn't stop sneaking food, it should leave the house. But the little demon didn't care and even acted like it was angry with him. The next morning, Tazuki suddenly couldn't find the little demon anywhere, and he thought maybe it had really run away. As it turned out, when Tazuki returned home from school, his little sister said she had prepared food for the little demon, but today it didn't come down to eat as usual in the following days. Tazuki still couldn't find the little demon and was always downcast when going to school, so Sarah went to check on him. After hearing about the little demon's disappearance, everyone decided to help Tazuki look for it. They didn't see the little demon at the temple anymore, and me and the other pets also felt very sad. One day, Sarah and Tazuki suddenly saw the little demon jumping on the roof, so they rushed to chase after it. However, the demon they had just seen was one that lived near the temple. Meanwhile, Tazuki discovered that his little pig demon had gotten stuck trying to squeeze through a hole. Since it had eaten too much and had a big belly, it couldn't get out by itself. Tazuki took the little demon back to the temple with its friends, and they all drew a picture to welcome the little demon's return. On their way back home, Tazuki said he was very worried about the little demon when it got lost. When the little demon realized how much Tazuki cared for it, it cried bitterly with emotion. From then on, it didn't dare to sneak food from Tazuki's little sister anymore. Sarah's father continued to send him a strange package, and the package was shaking violently, emitting groaning sounds from within. Sarah had prepared weapons just in case it was some kind of evil spirit or demon, but it turned out to be a talking statue of an Egyptian god, Anubis. Upon seeing me, Anubis was surprised because, just like him, he was from Egypt. Unable to move his limbs, Anubis started nibbling on me to feel its body. However, this didn't cause any pain to me, but instead felt incredibly pleasant, like a massage. The statue had been purchased by Sarah's father from a souvenir shop in Egypt and was simply a statue mounted on a wooden board, so it couldn't move on its own. Sarah noticed that his father also sent some sand from Egypt. He quickly recognized that the sand was from its homeland, and it joyfully jumped in to play with it. Sarah made a small cart for the dog to pull Anubis around the house, and everyone brought their pets to play with him. Tazuki informed everyone that talking statues like Anubis were actually secondary gods. The old statue in the temple was also one of these secondary gods. They rarely spoke in front of humans. While they were talking, Sarah suddenly started hiccuping nonstop. Seeing this, Tazuki mentioned that if someone hiccuped more than 100 times, they could die. This frightened the pets, and their faces turned pale. Everyone was alarmed when they saw the bandages on Mi's body slipping off, and it jumped onto the dog's back, trying to escape from Sarah. Even the other pets tried to stop Sarah from chasing after it. Tazuki had always wanted to know what was under Mi's bandages.